Have you ever looked at someone you love, and felt that something was off, even though you couldn't quite explain why? Maybe it was the way they paused halfway through a sentence to catch their breath, or how they brushed off a little swelling in their feet as, just getting older. Maybe you noticed them sleeping more, moving slower, or acting a bit different, but you told yourself, it's nothing. They're fine. But deep down, a small part of you wondered if those tiny changes meant something more. And if you're being honest, you probably pushed that thought away because the idea of losing them, of watching their health slip quietly out of your hands, is something your heart isn't ready to face. Yet here's the reality most families discover too late. The earliest signs of heart failure don't show up like dramatic movie moments. They whisper. They hide. They blend into everyday life. And because they're so subtle, most people don't notice them until a doctor finally speaks the words no one wants to hear. But you? You're here because you care. You're here because you've seen things, little things, that made you pause. You're here because you want to protect the people who once protected you. And the truth is, seniors often show signs long before doctors ever diagnose heart failure. Their bodies speak before their medical tests do. The real challenge, the part families struggle with the most, is recognizing those early warnings while there's still time to act with love, patience, and intention. Because catching these symptoms early, it could mean the difference between a sudden emergency and peaceful, steady support. It could mean avoiding a frightening hospital visit. It could mean giving your loved one comfort, dignity, and a better quality of life in their final years. So in this video, you're going to learn the 5 signs doctors recognize instantly, the 5 changes that make them stop, look again, and think, this heart is struggling. Some of these signs will surprise you. One of them, most families ignore until it's too late. But not you. Not after today. Before we dive in, let me know you're fully here with me. Drop a comment that says, I'm here. Because by being here, you're taking a powerful step, one that could help you understand your loved one better than ever. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to Elderly Wisdom Guide, where we walk this road together, with compassion, honesty, and the kind of guidance that truly makes a difference. Now take a breath. Let's start with the very first sign, the one that so many families overlook because it feels small, harmless, almost too ordinary to worry about. Sign number 1. Sudden or subtle shortness of breath. Think about someone you care for, maybe a parent, a grandparent, or an elderly friend. Think about how they used to move, how they used to walk around the house, or step outside to check the mailbox without thinking twice. Now picture this. One morning, they head out like they always do, but halfway to the mailbox, they stop. They lean on the railing. They take a deeper breath than usual. They pretend to admire the sky or look at something in the yard, just long enough to catch their breath before continuing. Or maybe you see it in the little things, like the moment they bend down to tie their shoes and suddenly pause, holding onto the arm of a chair because they need a second to breathe. Or maybe you notice it when they're talking to you, how they speak in shorter sentences now, how they stop mid-thought, inhale, and then slowly continue. It's easy to write off moments like these. You tell yourself, they're just getting older. Or, maybe they're tired today. Sometimes families assume it's asthma, allergies, or simply not being active enough. And because the change is so subtle, so gradual, you don't think much of it. But here's what's really happening inside the body. When the heart becomes weaker, it struggles to pump blood effectively. And when the heart can't pump well, fluid starts to build up, especially in the lungs. That fluid makes breathing feel heavier, tighter, like there's less room for air. So even simple activities, walking across a room, bending down, or talking a little too long, can suddenly feel like climbing a hill. And this is the part most people never notice until much later. Shortness of breath doesn't always show up during movement. Sometimes it appears at night. You may see them prop up extra pillows, trying to sleep sitting up instead of lying flat. Or you might notice them waking up suddenly, coughing or gasping, claiming they just had a weird dream, when in reality, their body was struggling for air. This isn't just aging. This isn't just low stamina. This is the heart whispering that it's working harder than it should. So, if you notice these changes, even the tiny ones, don't ignore them. Encourage them to take things slowly. Watch how their breathing changes from day to day. Pay close attention at night, because that's often when the truth reveals itself. And remember, breathlessness doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it shows up as a small pause, a quiet sigh, a slower walk, a sudden need to rest. Now, let's move to the second sign, one that often shows up quietly, disguised as something harmless, something normal, something families laugh off without realizing what it truly means. Swelling in the feet, ankles, or lower legs. You've probably seen this at some point, a grandmother sitting on the couch, slipping off her shoes with a little sigh of relief. She looks down, presses a finger lightly against her ankle, and with a small laugh says, "Look at these puffy feet of mine. Must be the weather, or maybe I've been drinking too much water." To her, it's a joke. To the family, it's just water retention. To everyone else, it's nothing serious. But here's what's actually happening beneath the surface. When the heart begins to weaken, it doesn't pump blood as effectively as it used to. As that pumping power drops, blood and fluid start to gather, most often in the lowest parts of the body. Gravity pulls the fluid downward, which is why the feet, ankles, and calves swell first. And that swelling isn't just a cosmetic change. It's the body's quiet way of saying, the heart is struggling. But families don't always see it that way. They assume it's from standing too long at the market. Or maybe eating something salty the night before. Or wearing shoes that are too tight. Some even think it's just part of aging. And to be fair, swelling can come from many things. But when it becomes frequent, when it starts showing up at the end of every day, when the skin looks shiny or feels tight, when pressing a finger into the skin leaves a little dent that lingers longer than it should, that's when the heart might be sending a message. If you're caring for someone who shows this kind of swelling, there are gentle ways to help without overwhelming them. Encourage them to elevate their legs for a bit. Just a pillow under the calves while they sit can make a big difference. Suggest short walks or simple movements to help circulation. And start noticing patterns. Does the swelling appear every evening? Does it get worse after salty meals? Does it go away overnight, or is it their first thing in the morning too? These small details matter more than most families realize. Because when swelling becomes consistent, it's less about the feet. And more about what the heart is trying to say. But here's the important thing. Swelling alone doesn't confirm heart trouble. It's a sign, yes, an important one. But the body has another way of warning you. Let's move to the third sign, one that's often brushed aside because it doesn't look dramatic. It doesn't send anyone rushing to the hospital. It doesn't feel like an emergency. But it should make you pay attention. Unusual fatigue, or a sudden drop in energy levels. Think about the elderly father who once woke up early every morning, stepped outside to water the plants, or tinkered in the shed just to keep his hands busy. Think about the man who used to enjoy long chats, reading the newspaper, or watching a full game on TV without drifting off. Now, imagine that same person slowly fading into a quieter version of himself. You see him sitting more often, lying down more often, or taking afternoon naps when he never used to. Maybe he says he's just tired, or didn't sleep well, or not feeling up to doing much today. Maybe he begins giving up activities he once loved, walking, gardening, fixing things around the house, because they feel a little too heavy now, a little too demanding. The change might be small at first. A skipped hobby here, a short nap there, a quiet day once in a while. But then it becomes more regular. More noticeable. More concerning. And you start to see it. The spark in their eyes isn't as bright. Their steps aren't as steady. Their voice sounds softer, slower, more drained. Here's why this happens. When the heart can't pump blood effectively, the brain and muscles don't get enough oxygen. And when the body doesn't get enough oxygen, it doesn't have enough energy. So even simple tasks, walking to the kitchen, taking a shower, getting dressed, feel like climbing a hill. It's not laziness. It's not just aging. It's the heart working overtime, and the body paying the price. But families rarely see it that way. They assume their loved one is slowing down because of age. Or not sleeping well. Or feeling unmotivated. They even blame mood swings or forgetfulness without realizing the real root. A heart struggling to keep up. So if you're caring for someone and notice this sudden or gradual drop in energy, don't ignore it. Pay attention to how it unfolds. Does the tiredness come out of nowhere? Does it get worse week by week? Do they seem more irritable, confused, or withdrawn on days when they're especially tired? These small patterns can reveal a bigger picture, one that families often miss until a doctor points it out. Because tiredness can be deceptive. It sneaks up quietly. It disguises itself as something ordinary. It whispers instead of shouting. Let's talk about the fourth sign, a sign that's loud enough to hear, yet still easy to misinterpret. It's something many families live with for weeks or even months, thinking it's nothing more than a minor irritation. Persistent coughing or wheezing. Picture this for a moment. You're sitting with your elderly loved one, maybe watching TV, maybe having dinner, maybe just sharing a quiet moment together. And you hear that same little cough again. A soft, nagging cough that pops up every few minutes. Not strong enough to sound alarming. But just frequent enough to make you look over and ask, "Are you okay?" And like always, they wave their hand and brush it off. It's just allergies. It's the cold air. It's this weather. Or the classic one. "I've had this cough for years. Don't worry about it." And because the cough isn't dramatic, because there's no fever, no severe pain, nothing that screams emergency, you let it go. You hand them a cough syrup, a warm drink, or maybe a throat lozenge, believing it's just something seasonal. And for a while, that explanation feels comforting. It feels simple. It feels harmless. But persistent coughing, especially in seniors, can be something deeper. Something happening quietly inside the chest, long before anyone realizes it. When the heart begins to struggle, fluid can start building up in the lungs. Not enough to drown the breath. But just enough to irritate the lungs every time they try to expand. That irritation causes a lingering cough, sometimes dry, sometimes wet, sometimes sounding like a low wheeze or a faint crackle when they breathe in. You might never hear the crackling yourself, but they may mention that their chest feels heavy or tight, especially at night. They might cough more when they lie down. They might wake up in the middle of the night, coughing hard enough to sit up straight just to ease the pressure. They might need to sleep in a recliner or stack extra pillows just to make it through the night without coughing fits. But here's the problem families run into. They treat it like a simple cold or allergy. They buy cough syrup. They try herbal teas. They wait for it to pass. But if the cough is coming from fluid accumulation caused by a weakening heart, no amount of over-the-counter treatment will fix the root issue. So when you're caring for a senior and notice a cough that lingers, pay attention. Watch how often it shows up. Does it get worse at night? Does lying flat make it harder for them to breathe? Does it come with wheezing, or a feeling of heaviness in the chest? These tiny clues can point toward something more serious than a seasonal irritation. Because persistent coughing isn't just the lungs reacting to the environment. Sometimes, it's the heart asking for help. But coughing and wheezing aren't the only ways the body speaks. Sometimes, the body whispers through the skin instead of the lungs. Let's move into the fifth sign. A sign that shows itself on the outside, even though the true problem is happening deep within the body. It's one of the most visible but also one of the most overlooked indicators of a struggling heart. Changes in the skin, becoming pale, bluish, or unusually cool. Picture this. It's a slow morning, maybe a little chilly, and your grandmother sits by the window with her cup of tea. You look over and notice something odd. Her lips look slightly bluish. Or the tips of her fingers have this faint purple shade that wasn't there before. Maybe you gently touch her hands and realize they feel cooler than usual, even though the room is warm. She might laugh it off, blaming the cold air or poor circulation from years of getting older. And you might agree, thinking it's just the weather or a normal part of aging. But here's what's truly happening beneath the surface. When the heart weakens, it can't send enough oxygen-rich blood to the outer parts of the body. The hands, the feet, the lips, they feel it first. They lose warmth. They lose color. They lose that healthy pink tone that comes from steady, strong blood flow. So the skin begins to change. Sometimes it turns pale. Sometimes it turns bluish. Sometimes it becomes cool to the touch, even when the rest of the room is comfortable. Many families assume these changes are nothing more than temperature-related issues. They think the hands are cold because the weather is cold. Or the lips are blue because their loved one hasn't been moving around much. But when these color changes show up again and again, especially when paired with shortness of breath, swelling, or fatigue, the real message becomes clearer. The heart isn't pumping enough blood to keep the body warm, nourished, and oxygenated. So if you notice these shifts in skin color or temperature, pay attention. Watch how long the color lasts. Notice if the hands and feet stay cold even when the room is warm. Observe how long bruises take to heal, or whether tiny cuts linger longer than they used to. Because the skin can reveal what the heart is struggling to say. Watching someone you love change like this. Watching their body weaken or their personality shift. It can break you in ways you don't talk about. You want to help them. You want to protect them. But sometimes it feels like everything is happening too fast. Or too quietly. Or too far outside your control. But here's something I want you to hold close. Knowledge doesn't create fear. Knowledge creates readiness. Knowledge gives you power. When you understand these signs, when you see the small things most people miss, you don't have to panic. You don't have to be afraid. You can respond with love instead of worry. With patience instead of stress. With understanding instead of uncertainty. If any of these signs sound familiar, if someone you love shows even one of them, take a moment today to check on them. Sit with them. Ask a gentle question. Offer comfort. Offer presence. Because sometimes, what they need most isn't medicine. It's you. Caring for someone in their final years is an act of grace. It's not easy. It's not simple. But it is meaningful. Every moment you give them. Every conversation, every small gesture, every bit of care. Adds comfort, adds dignity, adds peace. And that matters more than you know. So let's quickly recap. The signs to watch for are breathlessness, swelling, unusual fatigue, persistent coughing, skin changes, and the subtle emotional shifts that often hide in the background. Which of these signs have you noticed in someone you care for? Share your experience in the comments. Your story might help someone else see what they've been missing. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like it, and subscribe to Elderly Wisdom Guide for more insights on caring for seniors with compassion, love, and awareness. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Stay strong. Stay aware. And remember, every act of care brings comfort to someone who truly needs it. I'll see you in the next video.